Hello everyone and welcome to the Sports Stories podcast. I'm your host Seiji McSwain. And for this episode we're going to be going over the first round grades for the draft, for the NBA draft that just happened about, I want to say last week, Thursday, a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure. I'm just losing track of all time here. But I was able to get that OBJ video out and I hope everybody enjoyed that. And then also I made a mock draft the day prior, and I was gonna make a video on that, but then I just didn't have enough time to actually record it and edit it before the draft came out, so that's why I just made that quick little Instagram post of my mock draft. Not everything happened. I think I only got like 6 picks right. But other than that, it got derailed basically by the first pick. With the Magic picking Paolo Banchero instead of Jabari Smith Jr. But a lot has changed, and after I given some time to sit and see what everybody thinks about the draft and see how everything kind of formulates, I'm just gonna go ahead and give my draft grades for the first round. So with the first pick, the Orlando Magic selected Paolo Banchero, coming out of Duke. And I think he's a really great player. I had him at top 3. I had him going to the Rockets, I believe, in my mock draft. And it was kind of interesting to see that they got Paolo Banchero, since they just had such a strong connection and such strong ties to Jabari Smith Jr. So everybody thought they were going to get Jabari Smith. And then, but overall, I think he still will fit in their system great. I think he's a really great player. He has, his size is just unmatched, basically. So I think overall he's just a really great player. He can definitely fit in the Magic system. So for this pick, I'm gonna have to give it an A+. Now for the second pick in the draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder selected Chet Holmgren, coming out of Gonzaga. Now, this one, I already had in my mock draft. I said that he was going to the Thunder. Overall, I think they just really had such a strong connection and link towards each other in the media, and it just seemed like a more concrete pick within the top 3. So they still ended up getting Chet Holmgren. I think it'd be a great fit for Shai Gilgeous. Sorry, I can't even say his name. SGA, I guess you could say. And Josh Giddey, I think he's going to complement both of those players really well. Josh Giddey had a really good rookie season, and SGA has had a really great career overall ever since, Chris Paul has landed there in Oklahoma City, and ended up leaving. I think overall he's had a really great, resume for himself. And then Josh Giddey, again, like I said, really great rookie year. Many people weren't expecting much from him, but I think overall, he showed that he has some promise. He just needs to have the right people around him, and I think Chet Holmgren will definitely help him, as a player. They already calling Chet Holmgren and Poku the Slim Towers. I think those guys are going to be some pretty interesting big men to see down there in the paint. But they're tall, they're lengthy, and I think the Thunder could really get something around this young core. So as for this pick, I will give this one an A+. Now for the third pick, the Houston Rockets selected Jabari Smith Jr., coming out of Auburn. Now, everybody, like I said, again, Jabari Smith, everybody thought Jabari Smith was going to be the first pick to the Magic, and he ended up not being the first pick, and I think this made for an easy decision on the Rockets' part on just getting Jabari Smith, just getting the best player on the board. And I think he'll fit, really well with Jalen Green. I think they'll make a really good young duo there, especially with Kevin Porter Jr. as well. And then, I think he's a really good shooter. He has really good defense. So I think there is some room for improvement for him. And I think the Rockets have already shown that they have a good development team around on the organization. So overall, I think this was a great pick for the Rockets. So I'm going to have to give this pick an A+. Now with the fourth pick, the Sacramento Kings selected Keegan Murray, coming out of Iowa. Now, this one was an interesting pick, because my mock draft I had Jaden Ivey going to the Kings, and I know a lot of people were like, why would you have Jaden Ivey going to the Kings, even though they already have 2 great guards. And that one was a hard decision, but I think Jaden Ivey was just the best prospect on the board at 4. And instead they ended up getting Keegan Murray, who I had going 5th to the Pistons in my mock draft. So, I mean, they really just flip-flopped on the draft, in the actual draft. And, I mean, yeah, I would have gone Jaden Ivey, even though Jaden Ivey has openly expressed that he didn't want to be on the Kings, mainly because of that guard play, and he wouldn't find any starting time. So, he openly expressed that. So, I do understand the Kings not picking him, because why would you pick a player that wouldn't want to be on your team? And I mean, instead they got Keegan Murray, who's a pretty great player. I mean, he was the second best college player in the nation last season. So I think he'll be good. But I don't think it would be the best pick talent-wise for the Kings. So as for this pick, I'm giving it a B. Now, as for the 5th pick, my Detroit Pistons selected Jaden Ivey, coming out of Purdue. Now I feel like Jaden Ivey, I think this is probably the perfect spot for him to go. It just seemed, so smooth, I guess you could say. Just everything seemed in the process of getting Jaden Ivey was just amazing, especially the days after the draft. Everything seemed really well. And I think Jaden Ivey's a really great player. I think he'll complement Cade Cunningham really well in that backcourt. And then also just, I think he has really great star potential in the NBA. I think he could be an all-star player, and one of the big players in the NBA in just a few years. Especially just that entire Pistons roster is just amazing, and there's still young players. I believe some of our best players are even in their 3rd year in the NBA. I think, they've been doing well, so far. Obviously the record's not showing it, but I think especially with having young players, it's not going to be an immediate success story, and I think the Pistons are really setting themselves up for a future championship team here in probably the next few years. Now, with the 6th pick, the Indiana Pacers selected Benedict Mathurin, coming out of Arizona. Now, in my mock draft, I believe I had him going to the Pelicans. I don't remember what the Pelicans draft was. At the 8th pick, I had him going at 8th. So this one was a little high for me in my mind. I think this one would have been, I think he could have fallen down the draft board a lot sooner, and maybe they could have even drafted down for him. But I still think he's a great player. I think he'll really complement Tyrese Halliburton on that backcourt. I think they'll be an amazing duo. They're still both young. Tyrese Halliburton was probably one of the top candidates for Rookie of the Year just a few years ago. And he ended up getting traded by the Kings to the Pacers, and that season he was doing pretty well. I think, again, he's going to play a full season for the Pacers this year, so I think it's only going up from here, especially with the pairing of Benedict Mathurin. Now, this one was kind of a questionable pick because there are still question marks around Miles Turner, and when I did make this, there were still question marks surrounding Malcolm Brogdon, but they did end up trading him. I don't remember which team though, but they did end up trading him, I believe. So obviously the loss of Malcolm Brogdon is really going to hurt the team, but I think Benedict Mathurin's size and strength and shooting ability will really boost this Pacers team to another level. So as for this pick, I'm gonna have to give it an A. Now, with the 7th pick in the draft, the Portland Trailblazers selected Shaedon Sharpe, coming out of Kentucky. Now, I think this was a decent pick. My only problem with this pick is that Shaedon Sharpe has no film whatsoever from college, so we don't know how he will play. The latest film that we had was from his senior year in high school, which obviously the competition is at a much lower level than it is at college, and obviously we don't know how his skills are going to be translating over to the NBA. So there were a lot of question marks surrounding this pick. A lot of people do see that he could be a good player in the NBA, but without that proof of how he's going to play at a high level, I'm really not sure. He seems like a really great player from what I've seen from his tape. So overall, I think he's a decent player. It's just a lot of question marks around how he could play at this next professional level. But I do know that the Trailblazers were trying to find somebody that could help them win. They're really trying to surround Damian Lillard with talent, because I think they believe that Damian Lillard might be leaving. And I mean that deal that he might sign hasn't really been finalized yet, so nobody really knows if he is going to go back to the Trailblazers. So I think they're desperately trying to find pieces that can go around him to make him re-sign. So obviously the trade for Jeremy Grant helped a little bit with that, and then also the Shaedon Sharpe draft pick might have helped him with that. Maybe another guard for him to play with. And then obviously Kevin Durant is now on the board with the Nets, so maybe they make a move for Kevin Durant. I'm not sure, but obviously for this pick, there's a lot of question marks surrounding his play. So as for this pick, I'm gonna have to give it a C. But if he can, and if he is a really great player and he does do really well at this next professional level, I think the Trailblazers might have gotten one of the best sleeper picks. Now with the 8th pick, the New Orleans Pelicans select Dyson Daniels, coming out of the NBA G League Ignite. Now, Dyson Daniels is probably the best player at this spot for the Pelicans. I think he was the best talent off the board, so I think this is a great pick for them. I believe that he's the best defender or I don't know why I said it like that. I think he's the best defender in this year's class. I think overall has great defense. I think he's going to be a really nice fit for the Pelicans, especially since they are rebuilding. So I think he's a great pick. And they're really starting off early, making some great decisions for a young rebuilding team. So as for this pick, I'm going to have to give it an A. Now with the 9th pick, the San Antonio Spurs selected Jeremy Sochan, coming out of Baylor. Now the Spurs, I think this is a great pick. I mean, overall they had a great draft in both the first and second rounds. But this pick with Jeremy Sochan was really great. I think he's a great player, a great defensive player. I think he can basically defend any position on the court. And his offense does need improvement, but I think it's still really good and it doesn't need much. So overall, I think he's a great player. He has the skill to show at this next level. I think he's going to fit perfect into the Spurs system. So overall, I'm going to have to give this grade an A+. Now with the 10th pick, the Washington Wizards selected Johnny Davis. And now in my mock draft, I did have Johnny Davis going here at the Wizards for the 10th pick. I think he's a great player. He's a great 3-level scorer. And will give the Wizards a much needed help on that offensive side of the ball. So overall, I think it was a pretty good pick. So I'm going to have to give this grade an A-. Now with the 11th pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who got this pick from the Knicks, selected Ousmane Dieng, coming out of the New Zealand Breakers team overseas. And I think this one was a pretty good pick. Obviously, since they did trade up for this pick, Ousmane Dieng was a player that was really high on their draft board, and I think they went ahead and were really aggressive on getting their player. And so I think Sam Presti did a pretty good job with this draft, so I'm going to have to give this a grade of an A-. Now with the 12th pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder selected Jalen Williams, coming out of Santa Clara. Now I think he had a really good showing at the Combine, and which really boosted his draft stock. And I think he went up draft boards, and I think the Thunder, again, having back-to-back picks, decided to jump on probably the best talent left at this pick. So for this pick, I'm gonna have to give it a B-. Now with the 13th pick, the Detroit Pistons, who got this pick from Charlotte, selected Jalen Duren. Coming out of Memphis. Now this pick, as a Pistons fan, this one was probably the best thing I've ever said. Probably the best draft. The draft with Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, and that's Troy Weaver's first draft. And he was making some trades and he was getting it done, right? Everybody was like, okay, he's doing something here. Next season we don't do too well, but we get the first pick. We get Cade Cunningham, and then we get Luka Garza, and we get Isaiah Livers. He was going off in the draft. And then, now this is his 3rd season, and I think he's finally mastered the GM position. He is the ultimate fleece. It was the ultimate fleece of the year. you can't change my mind on that. It was a 3-team trade. I believe it was with the Knicks, Charlotte, and the Pistons, obviously. Now, I believe the Knicks had this 13th pick, and they selected Jalen Duren. But I believe somehow in this trade, I'm really not sure how Charlotte got into the mix, so I won't really speak on Charlotte's behalf, but I do know that this pick, this pick might have been from Charlotte, went over to the Knicks. Knicks selected Jalen Duren, but once they selected Jalen Duren, they traded him over to the Pistons along with Kemba Walker, which obviously Kemba Walker has now been bought out by the Pistons. I believe they just had to get out of the contract, so they mainly just traded him to the Pistons, and the Pistons just bought out the contract. And then Jalen Duren, they got Jalen Duren. Okay, it was probably one of the, it was an unbelievable draft, man. I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is about to be the best team. I'm telling you right now, Pistons are about to be the best team in the league in like 3 years. I'm telling you. Okay, 2025 Pistons NBA champions. Okay, I'm calling it. I'm speaking it out into the universe right now. So in 2025, you can come back to this video, and if they win a championship, I'm a genius. Okay, because this was single-handedly the best. I think the best pick and the best trade of the draft. Like, it was just amazing. In my mind, they got 2 top 10 players in the first round, and they're picking outside the top 10 right here at 13, and they got Jalen Duren. I mean, Jalen Duren's a great center. He's more of a defensive center, which I think will be great for the Pistons. I think they really need the defense. Their offense is really good, but really their main defensive players are mainly probably Isaiah Stewart, Cade Cunningham, and Killian Hayes, which again isn't really the best defenders on our roster, or even in the league. So getting Jalen Duren was a great pickup, especially for a need that on defense, which we need. So for this pick, I'm gonna have to give a B+, mainly because of the assets that they did trade, which kind of brought it down, but still a great pick in my eyes. So again, I'm gonna have to give this a B+. Now with the 14th pick, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Ochai Agbaji, coming out of Kansas. Now, Agbaji is one of the oldest players in the draft, since he was in college for all 4 years at Kansas, and his story is kind of inspiring. He came from basically not even being recruited, or he wasn't even ranked, I believe, as a high school player. And he only got one D1 offer, which was Kansas. And his start at Kansas, wasn't the best. He kind of rode the bench there, but at his senior year, that's when he really started to break out. And obviously, they ended up winning the national championship. So I think, his story is really inspiring, but overall, he's just a really great player. He's one of the more mature players, again, since he's spent all 4 years at the college level. And I think he's going to be really great. He's more of a defensive player, which, again, will be a great fit for the Cavs, since they don't really have much defense other than Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. I think he's going to really be adding on to that front court for the Cavs. So I think this was an amazing pick, so I'm going to have to give it an A+. Now with the 15th pick, the Charlotte Hornets selected Mark Williams, coming out of Duke. Now Mark Williams was already heavily connected to the franchise way before the draft started, and in my mock draft I did have him going 13th to the Hornets. So obviously I think they still got their guy. A lot of Hornets fans didn't really like the pick, mainly due to the trade of Jalen Duren and everything like that, but I think overall still a great pick. I think they still got their guy that they needed. So as for this pick, I'm gonna have to give it a grade of an A. Now for the 16th pick, the Atlanta Hawks selected AJ Griffin, coming out of Duke. So 2 back-to-back Duke players getting picked here. Now I had AJ Griffin going to the Knicks at the 10th spot, but then the Knicks obviously traded that pick over to the Thunder. So I think overall, the Knicks are seen as probably the worst team. Okay, the worst team out of the draft. Probably even worse than the Nuggets. Okay, because they literally traded away everybody in the first round. They were like, we have all these picks. Okay, trade. Okay, we don't need any first round picks. I think what the CEO, the GM of the Knicks, had an apology or like kind of an explanation of what happened. And they basically said that they wanted to do more in free agency, which I can see getting your team better in free agency, but most of the players on free agency aren't young players. These are mainly old players. Granted, they're good. Maybe you make a push for Kevin Durant, maybe make a push for Kyrie or, other free agents. But most of them are really old, or not old, but if you're the Knicks, I feel like you should be investing in a more young team. You see how it's working out in the Eastern Conference alone. I mean, the Raptors kind of have a good mix of veterans and young players. I mean, Pistons are kind of up and coming. Or even in the West, the Rockets, the Thunder. Again, back to the East, kind of the Magic, where they're kind of up and coming with that young core. I think overall, they are not seeing this young core kind of build up. They're still trying to just throw players money, which I don't think is the best option. But moving on to the pick for the Hawks, I think AJ Griffin was a great pick. I think he was the best talent that was still on the board at this point in time. So I think it was an easy pick for the Hawks to just get AJ Griffin. Now the trade for DeJounte Murray, I think, is going to be very helpful for the team. Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, John Collins, and then AJ Griffin. I think that's going to be a really great core. Obviously not all 5 of them, but I think it's going to be a great core. Obviously they had to trade away Danilo Gallinari to the Spurs, and the Spurs ended up waiving him. But they obviously had to lose a good role player in Gallinari, but I think they really got a good core here. I think they could really build off of it. In the playoffs, what I saw from Trae Young is that he was just throwing up shots. He had no ISO game whatsoever. It was either he did really good, or it was complete trash. Like, he was not scoring at all. He's going like 13 for 30 from field. Okay, he was probably the top scorer on the team in the playoffs, but he wasn't passing the ball. Bogdanovich may be leaving the team as well, so we don't really know. But getting more players around Trae Young, I think, is really going to help his game and help the Hawks at the same time, because it's just a matter of fact of who's going to be shooting the ball. And I don't think it's going to be as much pressure on Trae Young to really shoot the ball. And he's not going to be forcing up these shots from like half court. Okay, he's either going to make it or he's going to miss it horribly. And I think that was really the downfall in the playoffs. Again, surrounding him, I think it's a perfect decision by the Hawks, so I'm going to have to give this pick an A. Now with the 17th pick, the Houston Rockets selected Tari Eason, coming out of LSU. Now he's one of the top, I think he was a top 10 defensive player last season, and I think he'll continue to improve on defense with the Rockets, and the Rockets really need a versatile defender. So I think overall, I think this is a great pick for the Rockets, so I'm going to have to give this a grade of an A-. Now with the 18th pick, the Chicago Bulls selected Dalen Terry, coming out of Arizona. Now, Dalen Terry really rose up in draft boards pretty late into the process, I believe like days before the draft. But I think he's still a pretty decent player. But I think, a lot of people still have him going in the first round, but it was more late first round, so I think this is kind of a reach for the Bulls to really grab him here. So, as for this pick, I'm going to have to give it a B. Now with the 19th pick, the Memphis Grizzlies, who got this pick from Minnesota, selected Jake LaRavia, coming out of Wake Forest. Now, although they didn't have to trade for this pick, I think it was still a great pick. LaRavia has a really great offensive skill set, so I think overall that'll be a great pickup for the Grizzlies, because I think they just need to improve on their offense. I think their defense is great. I think they just need to add more role players around John Morant, more than they already have. So I think this is a really great pickup for the Grizzlies. So for this grade, I'm gonna have to give it an A-. Now with the 20th pick, the San Antonio Spurs selected Malachi Branham, coming out of Ohio State. Now, Malachi Branham was widely considered possibly a lottery pick for most teams in the draft. So, them picking him this low as pick number 20, I think this is a complete steal. So I'm going to have to give this pick a grade of an A. Now with the 21st selection, the Denver Nuggets selected Christian Braun, coming out of Kansas. Now Braun is probably one of the most athletic players in the draft, and I think he'll immediately contribute to the Nuggets team. I think he's going to develop into a really good 3-and-D player. And I think the Nuggets were really impressed by him at his workout that they had. So overall, I think it was a decent pick. I think it was just way too safe by the Nuggets. I mean, they had way better players on the board. Walker Kessler, David Roddy, in my opinion, I think were two other players that were picked just right after him, which were really great players. So as for this pick, just for it being a little too safe, I'm going to have to give it a C-. Now with the 22nd pick, the Timberwolves, which got this pick from the Grizzlies in that trade for pick swap from 19 to 22, they got Walker Kessler. Now I don't think he's going to be a good defender in the league. He just can't really defend in space. But I think if he's put in the right scheme, he's going to be pretty valuable. Obviously, in this new Rudy Gobert trade that they just did, he was a part of that trade, so he is now on the Jazz. Again, I think he was just put in the right scheme. I think he's going to be really great. I don't think he's going to be a great defending player, so that's a defensive hit for the Jazz. But I think if he's just right in the right scheme, he'll do amazing. So as for this pick, again, I'm just gonna have to give it a B-. Now with the 23rd pick, the Grizzlies, who got this pick from the 76ers, selected David Roddy, coming out of Colorado State University. Now, I think this one was a pretty good pick. It was kind of out of left field, mainly because I thought David Roddy was more of a second round pick. I don't think he was first round potential, but I think he still does have a really good skill set. He has a good dribble, pass and shoot skill set. I think overall he's a pretty good player. I think he could do some things with Memphis. I think he's going to be a great replacement for Dillon Brooks as well on the team. And I think if they, just really use him in a good way on the team, I think it'll be a great pick. So overall, I'm going to have to give this a B+. Now with the 24th pick, the Bucks selected Marjon Beauchamp. Now this could be a really good pick for Milwaukee, but I'm just not really that confident in the pick. I don't think it was a great pick. Just the talent that they already have, I don't think it's really going to be a meaningful pick for them. So I'm not as confident in it. But if they do use him and he's used in a really good manner, I think it'll be a pretty good pick in the future. So hopefully he will prove me wrong. But as of right now, I'm gonna have to give it a grade of a C+. Now with the 25th pick, the Spurs, who got this pick from the Celtics, selected Blake Wesley. Now Blake Wesley, I think, was on a lot of teams' draft boards. I think he would have gone in either the early to late teens. I think he would have been a really great pick at that position. So again, the Spurs getting another good pick here that I thought would have gone earlier. Overall, I mean, he has a really raw talent, and San Antonio has a lot of young guards, so this kind of bumped down my liking of the pick a little bit. But I think he has great athletic ability and really great scoring ability. So I think he's a really great player for developing in this league. So as for this pick, I'm gonna have to give it a grade of a B+. Now for the 26th pick, the Timberwolves selected. The Timberwolves got this pick from the Rockets, selected Wendell Moore. Now Wendell Moore is probably one of my favorite players in this draft class. I think I'm really confident in his ability. I think he can be a long-term role player with the Timberwolves, and I think he'll be a nice fit alongside Anthony Edwards. So as for this pick, I'm gonna have to give it a grade of an A. Now with the 27th pick, the Heat selected Nikola Jovic. Now I think he's gonna be a great pick. I think it's gonna take some time though. I think he still needs some development. But the Heat are really good with their development, really maximizing their physical potential. So I think it'll work out for them. So as for this pick, I'm gonna have to give it a grade of a B-. Now for the 28th pick, the Golden State Warriors selected Patrick Baldwin Jr. coming out of Milwaukee. Now he had a lot of buzz as possibly top 10 pick in the draft before the college season started, and then he barely creaked by in the first round. Now I think the Warriors don't really walk away. I think Patrick Baldwin walks away as a winner here. From what I've seen from other people saying, I saw one clip of people saying that he was put in the right position in high school, and then in college, with injuries and him just not being put in the right scheme, it just didn't look good for him. So I think overall, being on a winning team like the Warriors, who just won the national championship, I think he's being put in a really great position. So I think it's more him that's walking away a winner, rather than the Warriors walking away a winner. Now, at the 29th pick, the Houston Rockets, who got this pick from the Grizzlies, selected Ty Washington Jr., coming out of Kentucky. Now, if he has more to his game than we've seen in college, I think he has a really great scoring ability, but if he does show more promise than what he has shown already in college, I think this could be a really great pick. I had him going way earlier in the first round than what actually happened. So I think he's a really great talent, and this could be a complete steal for the Rockets. So as for this grade, since there is some question marks surrounding his skill and ability, I think I'm gonna have to give this pick a grade of a B+. Now, with the 30th pick, the last pick in the first round, the Denver Nuggets, who got this pick from the Thunder, selected Peyton Watson, coming out of UCLA. Now, they played it really safe with Christian Braun at number 21. So I think they close out the first round decently well. Again, I think he has the tools, and I think he has the ability to really be a great player, but it's just a lack of production here that I have seen from him. So, I'm going to have to give this pick a grade of a C-. Now, obviously, I think the teams that really had the best draft classes were the Magic, Thunder, Rockets, Pistons, and Spurs. I think they did really well, mainly the Pistons with their trading. The Spurs really getting young players really late in the draft. I think that was a great move. The Rockets making some minor trades in the last half of the draft. I think they made some pretty good picks. Obviously, the Magic got the first pick. I think you can't really go wrong with the first pick. And then the Thunder making a couple more trades to get some players they really wanted was great on my end, and I believe it was a really great draft. I think it was really an exciting draft. One of the more interesting drafts that I've seen in recent years. But overall, really great draft. Leave a comment down below if on your favorite team's pick, and see if what you think of your team's pick. I would really like to hear those, and as well, just leave a like and subscribe while you're down there as well, and also hit the notification bell if you want to watch some of the latest videos by me, or if you're watching or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give this podcast a 5-star review, and also leave it a follow as well, if you would be so kind. So I think overall it's a really great episode. Make sure you share it with anybody that you think would like to hear about their team's draft class. But as for that'll be it for today's episode. Again, thank you for watching or listening all the way through, and it's been a great episode. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you.